Hey, really quick tutorial on English muffins. You can make your no-knead bread, put it up the night before, 3 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of salt, and a quarter teaspoon of yeast. And then you will stir in 1.5 cups of water. If you do not have an overnight situation and you'd like your bread dough ready the same day, sometime in the morning, you'll need at least a few hours for it to rise. Do the same thing, but increase your yeast to 2 teaspoons of yeast rather than the quarter teaspoon of yeast. And by all means, if you have sourdough starter, throw some in. It'll be delicious and it'll help it be bigger and more flavorful. The longer the rise, the more sourdough it will be, the more broken down the bread or the grains will be, the more healthy your digestive health will be because of that. And the longer it goes, if it starts to ferment and get bubbly, then you will have that sourdough effect of kind of like a probiotic style bread. Now, I already broke this in half because I made a no-knead stromboli. So this is not looking fermented and bubbly. It already has some flour on it. So I apologize. I'm starting from the point where I've taken the saran wrap off. It's been covered overnight. I broke the dough in one lump out, then broke it in half, put half back in, made a couple strombolis with that dough, and now I'm going to use the other half of my dough, which is actually what you should be doing, is a single batch of dough. This is the 3 cups of flour, etc., etc. So I always put that right in the sink with some hot water running into it, so it'll break down all of that cemented flour. So no knead dough. All you're doing is getting it so that it doesn't stick to your hands. It's no knead, so please don't knead. Now, if you're making English muffins, you keep your dough like this, and you just press it out till it's about 1 inch thick in no particular shape. Just let it go, do what it wants to do, just so it's kind of level. Okay? You can see. And I won't need this anymore. A lot of times I cut my dough with that. I'm not going to knead it with an English muffin because I'm going to be using some type of glass or a biscuit cutter or something like that. Make sure as you're pressing nothing's sticking to you or underneath. It just makes your life easier. So I check and make sure it lifts. If I need to dust it with flour, I dust it with flour. I just did stromboli, so I just picked a piece of hamburger out of there from the last. It's nothing dirty, I promise. Okay, so I've got it about 1 inch thick, okay? And I have preheated here. This is you could use a skillet, or I have my griddle going. It's my cast iron griddle. Anything you can get up to hot to about medium low. That makes sense. We're going to take these English muffins with no second rise, and we're going to put them right on top of the heated pan, or in my case, a griddle. And there's a reason it needs to be hot. It needs to be up to temperature because when you put it on, you want it to sear the bottom so it becomes like dry on the bottom. And then it allows it to rise up while it's on your stovetop. And it kind of dries out the external. It traps the heat inside, creates those nooks and crannies inside. And then you can move it around on your pan and you can flip it over and brown each side. They do not take that long to cook, but if you have it too low, it will not cook as well. It will maybe actually be more dense. If you have it too high, it might be more undercooked inside as well. You're going to figure out the right temperature for your cooking surface. So I just flour this, and this is the trick. You find an edge of the dough, okay? We don't waste it. It's not sugar cookies. We're not going to cut out a whole bunch, take the scrap and re-roll it. We do not want to knead the dough. We don't want to re-roll it. So you incorporate an edge. You break it free. You see how that's free? Now, this is the trick. If you want them nice looking. If you don't care, just go on from here. This centrifugal force will tuck any edges in and make it nice and rounded when you leave it. It's great. It's awesome. But now you have pointed edges of your dough. Okay, so tuck those in and make it a rounded spot and push it back to about 1 inch thick. So anywhere you've got edges, make a round spot, and then you keep working. You incorporate the edge, break it free, centrifugal spinning here, force, move that guy out of the way, okay, and just park that off to the side. So see, you've got a little tail. That will not make an English muffin, so you just incorporate it underneath, press it flat. Anywhere there's a point or something that can't be put into a round English muffin size piece of dough, and make sure it's not sticking. I leave that area to rest so it will adhere a little into its shape. Go to that old area, break it free, Park it over there, tuck the tails in, the extra dough, and we won't have extra dough, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna let that area still rest. I've got a spot over here. I can incorporate that, break it free. Make sure that nothing is stuck under there. It can bang around. All right, I'm gonna move this one over here. I've got some edges to tuck in, and if it gets sticky, because you're cutting the dough open and the internal part of this dough is still sticky and wet. Okay, this one, break it free. So I can get really fast at this. So if you put up your dough at night and you want fresh English muffins for the morning, I'll tell you 2 things about that. One, yes, you can do that. Put up your dough at night. Yep, it'll be ready when you wake up. Dump it on, flour it, and just get cutting, spinning, put it aside, throw them on. You can have fresh English muffins in about 15 minutes, 10 if you've been doing it a while like me. Right now I'm going to go back to that area that I had tucked under before, and I'll let this area kind of get into its shape. You got to let it rest sometimes. But the other thing about English muffins, I will tell you, as wonderful as it sounds, like fresh, warm English muffins, these will have nooks and crannies, okay? However, if you cut into a warm bread of any kind, what happens? You cut into it, kind of squishes everything inside because it's really still cooking. Now, I would say baking, but we're not baking in our oven. We're cooking on the stovetop right now. So I will warn you, they are delicious, but they need time to kind of set a little. If you're doing it in the morning, I actually make English muffins at night. And then, because we're going to toast them, we like our nooks and crannies peaks to be a little crunchy when you bite into an English muffin, right? So that's my preference, is I make them the night before, or I may make them really early, just let them sit and cool so that when you cut into them, it doesn't squish the dough and make it look like it's doughy in the middle, because it won't really be doughy. It's just because it's hot. It's just how it's going to behave. So looks like to me, see I'm coming along, I've got this extra piece is kind of awkward looking. I'm going to roll it into one, and if it looks like it's about English muffin size, I would make it into a giant one, and I would just forego, if it doesn't fit, then I would just leave it, that bigger size. It'll be fine. Check the bottom. But you can cut it into like the perfect size if you want, and then form a really baby one too. I'm going to go with this because it actually came out a pretty good size. So these are my English muffins, and I'm going to take you over here, and I'm going to show you how I do that. See if I can move you. I just got a tripod, so let's see if you can see what I'm doing. Let's see. Can you see where I'm at? That helps a little bit. Okay, it's kind of a weird time of day. So I take my English muffins, and I just use my hands. You can use a wide spatula, the dough, or what do they call it, a bench cutter or something like that. And you just place them on here. Now, I like to cram them all into one batch. So I'm going to make some room happen here. So when you put them on, like I said, they're going to sear in the bottom. So you should be able to slide them around after just a couple of minutes. They're dry. This is a dry, ungreased pan. If you see anything shiny, it's because I did cook pancakes, and I think some of that was burning off a little bit still. So I'm just going to fit them all into one. And I'm going to let them sit here. And I'm going to shut this off because I want to keep it under 10 minutes, and we're at almost 9. So these are going to cook, and they'll start to fluff up. And I will just come along, and if they start to smoke, you'll know they're starting to get cooked. I will just come along, and I will check, and they will be stiff. They will be stiff so what the color is when they start to brown. And you can tell the difference if they're doughy or not. And I'll flip them as they need to be flipped when they're just starting to brown. It's okay if you get one that starts to char a little bit. Just it won't be usually the whole thing if you catch it in time. Just flip it over and cook it on the other side, and you're done. I just put it on a wire rack and let them cool, and we're good to go. It doesn't take too long for them to cool off for them to eat. You can eat them right away if you're really tempted. So that's all I do is I just kind of like check. And to be honest, after they become stiff on here for a couple minutes, they will... turn them up a little bit. I just flip them with my hands, actually. I just don't touch the griddle because they'll be that stiff. They'll cook dry out all the way around. So that is it. These will be about 6 minutes on one side. at the medium-low heat, and then maybe 4 minutes on the other side just to finish cooking them through. And they'll fluff up and be thick, and you're able to slice right through them and fork slice them if you want. That's it.